When I first teach students how to write, the first thing that I ask them to do is I ask them, what can you remember? What can you remember about your childhood home? About what you did in class today? What you did with your parents that day? What you ate for breakfast? If we read a story, what do you remember happening in that story? I had a class of kindergartners and grade ones, and we read a fairy tale together that was separated into 7 parts. And for each student, I assigned a single part of the fairy tale, and they were to draw what they remembered had happened. And by the end of an hour, with paper, crayons, and a little bit of snot, we had a 7-page comic. And for a lot of kids, this was a very fun exercise. You don't have to worry about the neatness of your handwriting, you just have to worry about what you find neat in your own art. But for some kids, they hated this project. They reacted like how I did when I was younger, and they thought that my art looks bad. It looks really, really bad. And if I were to ask a lot of people here, they would react the same way. Because my art looks bad, I don't want to do it anymore. It's a strange thing that we teach ourselves, that if we're not good enough at something, we should just avoid it altogether. This doesn't mean that we stop consuming art in all its forms. As a kid, I would fight for copies of Amulet, Bones, Geronimo Stilton, Tintin. Very evidently, we didn't hate art. We just hated our art. As we grow up, this hate or this avoidance for things that we aren't good at evolves into a fear of childishness. After all, real students read real books, real novels, and real poetry. And it's as we go from elementary to middle school to high school, we learn that there's a hierarchy, that there is good art and there is ugly art. Not necessarily based on what is considered conventionally ugly or beautiful or whatever, but rather what is considered good is whatever fits into the elite standard of academia. And whatever doesn't, normally stories such as comics, stories done by people of color, stories that are outside of this grand canon of English literature, it does not fit. When I went to university, I had hoped to ask this question. Can comics be critical literature after all? This is something that I love and I enjoy, and I know all my friends enjoy. Why can't it be critical? I have taken 3 courses in my entire 4-year degree. Only one of those courses actually talked about comics. The other 2 courses that talked about comics were hidden behind very difficult to find workday pages, very obscure syllabi that you find online. In contrast, there are 3 classes between lower, upper, and master's credits that all talk about Shakespeare. And this is not to say that Shakespeare is unimportant. I've taken 2 of those courses. Shakespeare is actually very important. But this is to say that quite evidently it is established that there is a preference for normally Western stories and literary canon that excludes everything else. And okay, fair enough. You can argue comics are for kids. Yeah, I mean, I put up all those examples earlier. We did read comics as kids. And maybe in some cases, they can be sensitive to rudimentary. But at the same time, we also argue that comics are too explicit. They're too adult. And if they're too adult, they're not appropriate for our classrooms, either in a high school or university setting. In either excuse that we make, we deem the form unproductive and unnecessary based on its aesthetic qualities. We believe that it can only exist if it fits within a certain standard. And that is an inherently dangerous logic. What happens if we apply that logic to the environment, to people, to entire cultures? In fact, I believe that comics and art is important because art is everywhere. And the moment that it's missing, you start realizing something's wrong. In fact, I think what we consider ugly we consider rudimentary, gets people talking. And I'll prove it to you right now. We all have our phones. You can pull out your Notes app, your little Doodle software, Instagram stories, and I want you to participate with me in this exercise to draw yourself and draw the person next to you. We shall start with a circle. It's very, very friendly. If you think the person sitting next to you has maybe a squarish face, you can draw a square instead. It doesn't matter. Just start with a shape of any kind. Next, we're going to add ears. I like to draw ears as little half circles, but I don't know, if you want to draw your friend as an elf, you can draw triangles. Or if you can't see their ears and they have hair that covers it, that's fine. You're going to draw the hair right after it. I have bangs, so I drew a little swirl to denote that. And I have hair that sticks out behind my ears. Next, we're going to add 2 eyes and a smile. Or, I mean, maybe your friend is not smiling. Sorry. And this is the important step. You're going to look at yourself and the person next to you, and you're going to see what is the defining feature of your friend. And for me, my defining feature is my glasses. Anytime I wear contacts, whenever I teach students, they always are very confused. It's like they don't recognize me anymore. So I always wear my glasses to work. And very simply, we're just going to draw a square body and arms, legs, and look at that. You have drawn yourself, and you've probably drawn someone next to you. And I invite you to share what you've drawn with the person next to you. And it's very silly, and I can hear all this talking. Don't make me pull out my teacher voice. Shh. It was silly. It was fun. And it had meaning. You might not think that this little drawing of you and the person next to you has no meaning, but it is a souvenir that you came here today to learn, to grow, and to change. It might not go in a museum, but I raise you, does it have to be? For it to be valuable, does it have to be approved by an institution? Does it have to be somewhere where people can recognize it? Why is that meaning no longer important if it's for you and the people around you? I know a lot of people say that, oh, AI art is going to take over. And I respectfully disagree with that. Because the meaning that is created behind art, visual art, comics, literature, is innately human. It is irreplaceable. You cannot recreate it. You can recreate the lines, the crookedness, you can recreate the drawing itself, but you can never recreate the aura, the feeling, the memories from this picture. Human creativity is difficult, and that's why it's beautiful. It's innate, and you can't get rid of it. And it is alive in you, even if you don't think that you have it. Linda Berry, a scholar of comics and of the ugly, says that kids speak image, that they are fluent in a way that allows me a new understanding about certain state of mind that twins itself with certain activities. We might not remember what our childhood might have been like. We might not remember all the skills that we've learned, but we can remember how to be creative again. And so, to the institution of the academia, the university, I raise an important statement that we have a moral and academic responsibility to no longer disregard comics, art forms, as unproductive parts of our education. In effect, we need ugly art. Thank you.